Radiance Films brings to Blu-ray a 1990 Hong Kong action romance melodrama that I'd never heard of, entitled A Moment of Romance, directed by Benny Chan and starring Andy Lau and Wu Chien-Lien and Man-Tat, whose name I pronounced wrong. And I apologize for that in advance. It's one of those things where it's a name that I had read for years, and I love his work. Tatman, we used to call him. And my friends and I, he's in a lot of the Stephen Chow movies, if you know the Stephen Chow movies. And we always just read his name and pronounced it. And it wasn't until I started listening to some of these 88 films and Arrow and Radiance releases with Frank Jeng commentaries where he actually pronounces everybody's name correctly. And I'm like, wow, I've been saying that wrong forever. So it's really supposed to be Man-Tat. And I'm going to say it wrong because it's just habit, and no disrespect for the man whose work I love. So, executive produced by Johnny To, who a lot of people know, and the associate producer was Wang Jing, who a lot of people know. So this film is, as I said, sort of a melodrama. It starts off, there's this bank heist, or I think it's a bank heist or a jewelry store heist, and Andy Lau is the wheelman, and there is a woman who, in Andy Lau trying to escape, he grabs her as a hostage, and he unfortunately takes her back to where he's supposed to meet up with the rest of the gang. She sees all their faces. The gang says, "What are you doing? We're going to kill this woman." Andy Lau, I'm not going to tell you the whole story. Andy Lau says, "Don't kill her. It was an accident. She didn't mean to see her faces. I'll take care of her." So they're like, "You better." And they leave, and he doesn't take care of her. He doesn't have the heart to kill this woman who is just an innocent bystander. And as the story progresses, they sort of meet up again. The gang finds out that he didn't kill this woman. So they say, "Okay, well, we're going to go take care of this woman." So it becomes Andy Lau protecting her. And from that, a moment of romance arises. So Man-Tat, he plays Andy Lau's uncle, who is, and Andy Lau's sort of an orphan. He's looked after by these women who run a brothel, and he has like a room upstairs. And Man-Tat is his uncle who lives on the street and washes the windshields of cars and feeds the meters for the triads. And he's just sort of a sad character, but has his pride. And this is the story about this guy who has nothing, Andy Lau that is, who is on the wrong side of the law, just scraping to get by, and has a chip on his shoulder, and this young woman that he meets who is affluent, and his parents are ready to send her off to Canada to go to college or something like that. And, lovers from the wrong side of the tracks, and who will survive and what will be left of them. So like any Hong Kong movie of this era, this isn't an action movie, but when it does have action, wow, it is amazing, crazy, no respect for property or lives action that you come to love from Hong Kong action movies. So if you think this is just, and when I got this, I'm like, oh, this is going to be one of those touchy-feely Hong Kong melodramas, which it is. Didn't expect it was going to have all the action in it. So it's really good. It's a good, solid film. It's not one that I'd ever heard of before. I think because I was always looking at the action or the comedy films from this era, and I am still slow to dip my toe into the romantic world of Andy Lau, as it were, which is probably the title of one of his albums at one point. And it was really good. Everybody in it is good. It's interesting to see some familiar faces. It's interesting, it's going to have the Hong Kong schmaltz that it has, but when it does do what it does it well, if that makes any sense. So special features, we have a commentary by Frank Jeng. He's always great. If you don't know Frank Jeng, if you haven't heard me mention him before, he was one of the heads of Tai Seng Video, which was a company that brought, for the first time, legitimately, a lot of Hong Kong films to America on videotape and Laserdisc, and eventually, I think they dipped into the DVD era. And he knows his stuff. He knows a lot of the people involved. He was working with the Hong Kong film industry when these movies were being made, so he really knows everything about everyone. So like everybody you see on screen, he'll give a really quick history of who they are, and he'll give a history of what was going on in Hong Kong at the time in terms of culture and politics and history and film production. If you see Frank Jeng's name on a commentary, it's worth listening to. The extras, we have Benny Chan archival audio interview from 2015 where he discusses his start in the industry, this movie in particular, and his collaborators on the film. You get something called In Love and Danger, Hong Kong Cinema Through a Romance of Moments. A Moment of Romance, which would be, the title of the film I'm talking about right now. Visual essay by critic and Asian cinema expert David Desser. That's 26 minutes. And then you get the original Hong Kong trailer. Now, being that it is a Radiance Films release, they all have a sort of a uniform look to them if you leave them in the package like I do. So this is the case. So you get a new artwork right here. You get an, what do you call it, an OB strip or a U card or a J card, like the Japanese releases, LP releases. I know Laserdiscs would always do this. So you get some info there and on the back, but that's a separate piece of paper that you can just slip out if you don't want it, if you want to see the whole cover. So original art on the back, you open it up. Nothing to write home about as far as what the disc looks like, but the quality on the film, by the way, I didn't mention. Transfer quality is great. This looks so much better than what I was used to when I used to see these films. Well, first of all, I used to see some of these films on the big screen on 35 millimeter, and they didn't look this good. And I saw them on VCDs and DVDs and VHS and Laserdisc, and these Blu-rays that are coming out now, they look so good. It's nice to know that they can look good because, as I say pretty much every time I do one of these Hong Kong reviews, I had read at some point years ago that the Hong Kong film industry didn't really take great care of their original materials for posterity, and that there wasn't going to be releases, there wouldn't be releases like this that looked so good. I am so glad that person was wrong. So the opposite side, as Radiance does, is reversible is the original poster art for the film. And then you get a booklet. So if you like Andy Lau, there's what they used to say in the teen magazine parlance, kissable photo of Andy Lau and his co-star on the back. And like everything, it's a thick book. It's a thick book with a lot of cool information and photos. We get information on the cast and crew, Beyond Romance, Andy Lau and Jacqueline Wu in the 90s by Sean Gilman. The Missing Auteur in A Moment of Romance by Tony Williams. And then you get transfer notes and credits. And the booklets on these, there was a lot of times where I would see booklets for video releases, and I'm like, what's the point? This thing has got a ton of extras. It's got a commentary. It's got interviews. What more is there to be said? Well, companies like Radiance know that there's more to be said, and they put it in the booklet. So it's really cool. It's just another fun thing. If you like physical media like I do, you like having things in collectibles, it's a nice little added feature, and it includes photos that aren't in the still gallery and elsewhere. So available now on Blu-ray from Radiance Films from 1990, Andy Lau in A Moment of Romance.